Welcome to the next part in our lecture on the endocrine system. In this part, we are going to look at the adrenal glands and the pancreas. Now, they are in the abdominal cavity. So this right here is actually the diaphragm. The stomach would be over here. The liver would be over here, and I'd be covering all this. The liver and the stomach are actually covering over these glands. Kidney right here. And this adrenal gland is sitting on top of the kidney. We have the other kidney right here, and this adrenal gland is sitting on top of the kidney. So the adrenal gland sits on top of the kidney. The pancreas is behind the stomach, and it actually has a head right here. It's very interesting shaped. And it actually has a duct that runs through it and empties into the small intestine right here. So the pancreas is a mixed gland. It has both digestive and endocrine functions. So the adrenal gland sits sort of on top of the kidney, and it is two glands. It has this inner adrenal medulla that's essentially an oversized sympathetic ganglia. And it resembles nervous tissue, but it also has a lot of blood vessels in it and a lot of these chromaffin cells. Now, the outer cortex is actually divided into three zones. So you can see over here, we have a chocolate zone, we have a vanilla zone right here, and then we have a strawberry zone. So the outer cortex is more like Neapolitan ice cream, and it's going to resemble glandular tissue. So the cortex makes steroid hormones. It makes 5 of the 6 steroid hormones, while the medulla is more nervous tissue. Focus on right now on the adrenal cortex, which is this area sandwiched in the yellow. Right there. This region actually has 3 sublayers called zones. So this is the first zone, the second zone, and the little tiny third zone. Now the zona glomerulosa is right here. And I always think it looks like strawberry or red. So zona glomerulosa. Zone is this zone in here that is usually very light, so it's like vanilla ice cream, and that's the zona fasciculata. Third zone is very, very thin, goes right up against the medulla. So you see the medulla is actually very colorful. This is the zona reticularis. Now, ACTH, it's going to mainly stimulate the middle zone, the zona fasciculata. So it's going to cause production of the hormones that are made in this zone. The other 2 zones are going to make other hormones, and they can be stimulated as well by ACTH. So I just realized this was cut off. So this is the zona glomerulosa here. This is the zona fasciculata here. And then what's left in the middle is this is the zona reticularis. And what's left in the middle is the zona fasciculata. And this is the medulla. There's 3 groups of hormones that are produced by the cortex, and they're all steroids. The first group are the mineral corticoids because they help with the reabsorption of sodium and loss of potassium. The main one is called aldosterone. So the zona glomerulosa here is going to make aldosterone. The middle zone, the zona fasciculata, that's going to make cortisone and cortisol. Those are slightly different hormones. And those are stress hormones. They help you deal with stress. Now the zona reticularis is right here. It's going to make testosterone and estrogen in both sexes. So women do make testosterone, men do make estrogen. And all of these are steroids. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 progesterone. Aldosterone causes you to conserve sodium. Now, water follows sodium. So when you conserve sodium, water goes, wait for me. And that is going to have a role in raising blood pressure without changing how salty your blood is. That's called osmolarity. Now, remember diabetes insipidus, where you're not making antidiuretic hormone? Could also not be making aldosterone in that case. but it's usually antidiuretic hormone for diabetes insipidus. ACTH mainly acts on the zona fasciculata, and it causes the release of cortisone and cortisol. The neat thing or weird thing about steroids is each time you change a functional group, it gets to have a new name. What they do is it causes fats and proteins to be used as energy. It's getting your body ready to expend energy. It causes glucose to be made from amino acids. There's no S there either. And that is also going to let you get ready for energy. It has anti-inflammatory effects. It reduces inflammation. I've seen it has immune promoting effects and immune suppressing effects. Since it's a stress hormone, I would say it is released more for lowering immunity and the effects of the immune system than increasing it, because when people are stressed all the time, they get sick easier. So cortisol is a stress hormone. You have highest levels of cortisol right before you wake up. I guess waking up from your 12-hour sleep is very stressful. No, I do not get 12 hours of sleep. I know you don't either. So you have high amounts when you wake up. Now, if you drink that morning coffee, that knocks out ACTH. So we shouldn't drink that coffee in the morning. Yeah, right. Good luck with that. I'm still drinking my coffee in the morning. Let's talk about sex hormones. They're made in the reticularis. And both sexes produce both sets of sex hormone. People do not believe me when I ask them that on the test. So both estrogen and testosterone are made in the adrenal cortex. Testosterone, which is an androgen, it has sex drive. It helps with bone density. I had a student who was on testosterone replacement therapy instead of estrogen for treating osteoporosis. It was very interesting. And men make testosterone in the testes, and they make a ton more. So their sex drive is more from the testes than from the adrenal cortex. Now, women also make a bunch of testosterone right at ovulation, and that again is from the ovaries and not from here. But both sexes make testosterone. Both sexes also make estrogen. Some of it is converted to progesterone. Some of it is converted to something called DHEA. And it plays a role in coagulation, in the ratio between HDL and LDL, and blood vessel maintenance. So it's actually important for doing other things. It may play a role with memory. That's the DHEA. One time I was lecturing and I forgot what DHE did. It was very ironic and embarrassing. And in men, estrogen may help with sperm maturation and balanced sex drive. This outer part of the adrenal cortex, that is the zona glomerulosa, and it makes aldosterone. This next part of the adrenal cortex right here, it is the zona fasciculata, and it makes cortisol, which is a stress hormone. The little tiny zone right there, the zona reticularis, makes both estrogen and testosterone. All of those are steroid hormones, and they're all made in the adrenal cortex, which would go all the way around the medulla, like this. This is the adrenal medulla. And it has these very colorful chromaffin cells, and the adrenal medulla is essentially a sympathetic ganglia on steroids. Remember, one of the things the sympathetic nervous system might do is the neuron leaves the spinal cord, goes into the sympathetic trunk, and then leaves without branching. Well, that neuron would be coming down, and it would be stimulating these chromaffin cells to release epinephrine and norepinephrine. So the adrenal medulla is basically a giant sympathetic ganglia that releases both epinephrine and norepinephrine. The chromaffin cells of the adrenal medulla produce both epinephrine and norepinephrine. It's about 75% epinephrine 25% norepinephrine. And please do not memorize that ratio. I read that in a paper 20 years ago and I still haven't forgotten it. These are both non-steroid hormones. So the medulla, non-steroid. Now, it has a similar effect to the sympathetic nervous system because it's being released by the sympathetic nervous system. It increases alertness, anxiety, or fear. So you get cut off on your way in, you're going to make a ton of epinephrine from the adrenal medulla. And that's going to increase your alertness, and it's going to hang out in your blood for half an hour. Remember, I can't forget that article. It increases blood pressure, heart rate, and airflow. It raises your metabolism, and it inhibits insulin secretion. So that's something cortisol also does. So people that are stressed out all the time are actually at risk of type 2 diabetes. And it stimulates the release of glucose from the liver. So it's another stress hormone. So two stress hormones, epinephrine and cortisol. Of our adrenal hormones, which is not a steroid hormone, aldosterone, cortisol, epinephrine, estrogen, testosterone. Well, these guys both have O and E, which sort of gives away their steroid hormone. So it's not A. Aldosterone makes you retain water and sodium. Testosterone is sex drive and muscle repair and bone density. Now, estrogen's real name is estradiol, so it ends in an OL, and cortisol ends in OL. The steroid hormones that don't end in O and E seem to end in OL. So, cortisol, the stress hormone, and estrogen, blood vessel maintenance, are also steroid hormones. So, progesterone ends in O and E. Calcitrol, that's vitamin D, ends in OAL, I guess. So our answer is epinephrine and norepinephrine. Epinephrine is generally released as a hormone. Norepinephrine is generally released as the neurotransmitter. Which hormone helps you to retain water? Well, it's a glucocorticoid, which is aldosterone. And do you remember where it's released? That's right, it's released in the zona glomerulosa. So I have a question. Which hormone or hormones does a man release in the zona reticularis? Well, epinephrine's the medulla. So that's not it. Aldosterone is the glomerulosa. So that's not it. Cortisol is the fasciculata. So that's not it. So it's actually D and E. They make both. So if I change that to a woman, what would the answer be? It's the same thing, estrogen and testosterone. So we did not get to the pancreas in this video. We will get to the pancreas and pineal gland in our last part. Thank you.